I work at LogPoint. LogPoint is a Scandinavian SIM company. We make your data easy to use. That's kind of our thing. That's all I'm going to say about that because I'm the techie. To start off with, I wanted to look at a bit of a commentary about what's going on at the moment and what we're seeing and what's sort of constantly being thrown at us. And for me, it's this. It's fear, fear, and a little bit more fear. All we seem to be talking about in the security industry at the moment is all the bad stuff that's going on. It's kind of like, yeah, we get that. We understand that. What else is there? And this is what I want to focus on in this presentation. I want to give you something that's a positive spin and something that's got some value to it. But first, let's look at some of the fear. Because at the moment, it is all about the insider threat, right? Everybody knows what the insider threat is. Yes, there is some stuff around insider threat, and yes, it's a risk area, but I'm getting a bit bored of hearing about it. I don't know what everybody else is. Are you feeling that as well? Yes, a little bit. Because, don't forget, there's still the external threat. We've still got all the bad guys out there. They're still trying to get in. They're still trying to steal your data. And this brings me on to the next thing, data. Why are they trying to steal your data? Why do they want it? If they want it, why is it so precious? Maybe we can use that. Think on that for a minute. But it's all right because we've got advanced persistent threats. And sometimes they're not very advanced. They're just very, very, very persistent. Okay, I hate the term APT. It doesn't really mean anything. You know, it just means that the advanced persistent guys, they could be using really, really, really bad malware, but they're very persistent about it. So eventually they get you. And essentially, hackers are everywhere, okay? These are all the things that we're constantly being told. And that's well and good, but to be honest with you, what I want to do is I want to do this. I want to stop and breathe for a minute. Why do I want to stop and breathe? I want to stop and breathe because of this. GCHQ reported a couple of years ago that they think 80% of cyber threats can be stopped if we do the basics. The really basic stuff. Not the stuff that we hear in the media that everybody gets super excited about, but the basics. And it's the basics where most people slip up and where you get hit. And that's not what we want to see, is it? So there are some things that you can do for free around the basics. Okay, now free, all the salespeople in the room go, oh! But it's there because you own and control a lot of your infrastructure. Okay, and the biggest thing and the thing that really, really bugs me is this. Passwords, okay? Everybody harps on about passwords. You've probably seen me harp on about passwords as well. This is also the point where you realise that if you search for Bill Clinton, you can only find pictures of him doing this. Scared. But passwords, how big are yours? It's not these days about size and complexity, okay? That's what we seem to be telling you. We want a password that's this big and this complex. And the moment we do that, no human can remember it, can we? So we put them all in password safe and then we have the one password to control all the other passwords. It's a bit Lord of the Rings-esque. Scares me a little bit. What do we do if we can't do that and if that's not maybe the right approach? Well, for me, it's all about uniqueness. What we want are uniqueness of passwords. So a password that you only use in one place but is easy to remember. Okay? Think nursery rhymes. My Facebook login is the first line of Bar Bar Black Sheep. My LinkedIn is the second. It's that type of thing that I'm thinking about. It's sufficiently complex that it'll take a hacker a while to crack or brute force. You can make it a bit more complex if you want by putting exclamation marks in. I like exclamation marks because when you put exclamation mark in and then type the password, it makes you feel a bit important. No? Nobody else get that? Just me. Okay. I need to stop. Inside voice only, I think. These are the sorts of things that you can do today for free. None of this will cost you anything, but it will improve your security in your organisation because people aren't aware of that. And what the bad guys will do is they'll go after your weakest point. So if you've got employees who are using Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that and they have a weak password there, the chances are they'll use that same password everywhere. And the moment they've compromised you in one place, it's very easy to proliferate out, and before you know it, they're into your organisation as well. The other thing while we're talking about users is policies. Okay, now policies is a little bit of a tricky one because you've got to decide in the first place what your IT security policies are going to be. Now for a lot of us in the room that's quite difficult because we don't really know what our businesses are trying to do. We don't know what that department's doing or why they're doing that. We don't know why they're doing that. We get lots of good advice and we go, well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. We've got to sit down and have a bit of a broad brush approach here and go, right, what policies work for my organisation? For me, security should be something that is behind the scenes, okay? It's something that keeps you safe, it protects you, but it doesn't jump up and down and scream in your face unless it has to. The reason for that is the moment you make something difficult, your users will find a way around it because it will slow them down on their day-to-day business. It's things like that that you don't want to happen, okay? You don't want to get in the way of business. So what am I talking about here? What I'm talking about here are things such as two-factor authentication to log in and access my email. Now, unless my email is super top secret, which for most people it's probably not, that might be considered overkill. And I've worked at organisations where you have to do that. So what do people do? Well, they put their name into their email address into Outlook or something like that, and that will go and find the Exchange server. Now, brilliant, put the password in, job done. If that's open, I've now got my email in an unsecured format that you weren't intending me to. There's lots of things out there that you can do around that. So if you are getting confidential information, you don't want people to read on devices, there's things out there that if it's tagged with something, it will go, you have this email, it's not secure on your phone, please log in and view it. What you're trying to do here is empower the people. Use security to empower people in your organisation without actually getting in their way, but still keeping it safe. Avoid aspirational policies, okay? This isn't a sales target. This is something that we need to be achievable. So don't put aspirational policies in there because nobody will ever adhere to them. You'll never be able to enforce them. You'll constantly be failing and running behind. The other thing that you need to do and think about is if you put policies in and they keep getting broken, why do they keep getting broken? The chances are that you haven't fully understood maybe how a particular part of the organisation works, and they need to work in that fashion and the policy is prohibiting them from doing that. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that the users there don't understand why the policy is in place. But again, these are all things that you can change for free. I'm not selling you anything yet, anyway. Talking of user education, this is the biggie, and this is one that most of us struggle with. And why do we struggle with it? We struggle with it because as an employee in an organisation, I'm just going, well, why do you want me to do that? What's the value in that? Why should I do that? I'm not doing that. Because I don't understand the value of that piece of data or information to the business. The most successful training courses that I've seen and done for user education are around when you go, okay, forget about the corporate data for a minute. Let's talk about your data. What do you have on your phone? I'll guarantee you've probably got some dodgy pictures on there that you wouldn't want getting out into the wild. You've probably got banking apps on there. You've got Facebook that will auto log in. You've got LinkedIn that will auto log in, okay? That's why a passcode on those devices is really important. Hence why we want you to use a passcode and have it secure for our environment. But what would happen to you if somebody got your phone and posted those pictures online? Would that be damaging to you and your brand? And once you get people to think about their data and pieces within what it means to them, it's very easy for you to then turn around and go, well, yeah, we know how you feel about that. That's how we feel about our data as a corporation, as an organisation. This is why we want you to do this. And the moment people can sort of cross-correlate between the two and go, oh yeah, okay, fine, that all damages, this is why we want to do that. It's making people understand in their own terms. That, again, can be done for free or relatively cheaply. Okay? We're not talking about ripping loads of stuff out here. It's making small improvements that will do that. The other thing around user education as well is how many people here have a call centre or central reception desk? Yeah, quite a few of you. If I was a bad guy trying to get through, or a hacker or somebody like that, the easiest thing for me to do is to simply ring up and ask for information. And at a lot of conferences, there are competitions for people to do this and see what information they can get out of people on the phone by doing this. If I get something that's particularly awkward, what am I going to do? I'm going to hang up and I'll redial because the chances are I'll get to speak to somebody else. If your staff and your frontline staff don't know about these sorts of attacks and things like that, humans naturally want to help humans. So if I ask you a question in the right way and phrase it to you, you'll probably return some information that I want. Now that little snippet of information might mean nothing on its own. But with the 5 or 6 other questions I've asked, I've suddenly building up a bigger picture. I know this information. If your frontline staff are aware of this type of stuff, they can turn around and they can go, I had some really weird phone calls to their line manager. And the other guy will go, yeah, I had some as well. The line manager now knows that maybe something is going on and can escalate that up the chain. You might know that you're being targeted then at that point. It's all about looking at the information that you already have within your organisation. That's the key to security. People are after your data. People profile you for your data. Why don't we profile ourselves and our data in order to defend ourselves? That's really where we've got to get to. And that brings me on to this, log data. We create tons and tons and tons and tons of data every day. It's really valuable information. And no end of times I'll talk to people and they'll go, we don't know who's on our network. We don't know who's connecting to our Wi-Fi. Well, I kind of see where you're coming from, but you do know. The product that's given you the DHCP address, that knows what MAC address is connected. That knows what device is connected. It knows what access point it's connected to. What we're actually saying here is the information is too difficult or too complicated to access or understand. That's the real point here. It's not that we don't have it, because 9 out of 10 times we do. It's the difficulty in accessing and understanding it. Okay? Log data and data in your organisation is key to you understanding your perimeter and your defensive posture. What we need to make sure we do, though, is we need to make sure we do all the basics right. We do them proper and we check that we're doing them. Make sure you've got AV in. Make sure it's installed on all the endpoints that you've got in your organisation. Make sure the policies are right. Constantly review them. Constantly be looking at what's out there on the market. What you might have signed off on the risk audit and the risk register 6 months ago, there might now be a product or a solution, an idea or piece of technology that can solve that for you. We've got to constantly be looking at our security posture. The other thing that a lot of you will have to contend with as well is compliance. Okay, show of hands, who's got some sort of compliance thing that they have to adhere to? Yeah, everybody loves compliance. It's that tick box thing, right? And that's kind of what it's been viewed as for the past few years. But compliance is the bare minimum for me. It's the bare minimum that you should be doing in your organisation. It's the bare minimum baseline guidance, okay? And what you're seeing with a lot of things like PCI and a lot of other things is they slowly ratchet this baseline up a little bit, and that's causing more and more pain. So all those things that were advisory before are now compulsory. But if we'd have looked at them before and gone, okay, this is good advice, we should see what we can do to implement it, when they become compulsory, it's not such a pain for the organisation. It's like, yeah, okay, we're already doing that. Move on. Compliance needs to be seen not as the tick box in the corner. It needs to be seen to have a bit of value. Yes, it is a tick box, but there's value there. There was a belief and a basis in why that compliance was brought in to get some value and get you looking and thinking at certain things. That's what we need to do with the compliance piece. It's all essentially about realising what you've already got. You have a lot of this data already today in your organisation, and we don't use it. But the bad guys are. The bad guys are profiling and looking for this information. They know about it, they use it. You are the owners of it, it's your data. You should be able to make best use and advantage of it in order to stop these things from happening. I know what you're kind of thinking. You're thinking, okay, I could start to I could start to bring in some security data, right? I could bring in my firewall, I could bring in my endpoint, and that would be able to cross-correlate, and I'd know then data about this and data about that. What I'm suggesting here is that you think a little bit bigger than that. Okay, you think a lot bigger than that, in fact. All data that you have in your organisation has value to you and can help you make decisions. Let's take, for instance, the following scenario. So I am a particularly untrustworthy IT admin. I know that's hard to see from my face, right? I'm all very trustworthy. But I know the CFO's login because I'm a god of the network, so I can pretty much do what I like. If you say it's password, great. So I log in on my machine, and I go, do you know what? I'm going to log into our finance package today. I need £5,000 in my life. The company's got it. They won't notice it. I log in as the CFO. I transfer it out. Now, obviously, you'd want to be alerted the moment that money's transferred out. But wouldn't it be great if you could get alerted earlier on in that chain? So if you could be alerted on the fact that me, Andy, has logged in and used Rebecca, our CFO's credentials, to then access an application from my workstation. Surely you'd expect those two logins to be for the same person. So now, as an IT security officer, you know this data. You've been alerted and alarm bells are ringing. And you're like, wow, okay, this is amazing. Let me go and get Andy and tell him off. And you're looking for me. Except if you thought a little bit bigger and brought in your security swipe card data, or maybe your car park access data, which some companies have, you'd know I'm not in the building. So you'd know it wasn't me, or potentially not me. This is what I'm thinking about, more and more data and thinking bigger. Now your security team now knows that actually it's 2 sets of credentials that have been compromised, and Andy maybe isn't our target. So we are looking for something slightly different here to our reaction. We're not chasing Andy. We need to get down to that workstation ASAP and find out who sat at it. Does that make sense? See where we're going with that? But that's the key bit, really. You already have all that information, so we need to start to make use of it. And this is how I kind of like to think about some of this stuff. Yes, they are a bunch of Lego heads. Imagine they were data. This is essentially what everybody thinks of as data. And data on its own, isolated like this, is just gibberish. Nobody can read it and understand it. Nobody knows what to do with it. And lots of people say collect it. And what do? Well, we collect it, we chuck it in a filing cabinet, or the digital equivalent of a filing cabinet. We don't look at it. And then the moment somebody goes, what did this person do 3 weeks ago? You basically have to turn around and go, we're not really sure. And the reason we do that is because it's too complicated to go and shift through all of that and look for the Lego head that I'm looking for. That's what we're saying here. Data on its own is gibberish. Data, in a little bit of context, becomes information. Okay? So data in a little bit of context is me turning around and being, well, yes, I know about that, and yes, I know that alert, and I think that's okay. That's information to me. Information is not where we need to stop, though. We need to get to knowledge, and information is not knowledge, okay? And what I mean by knowledge is I mean that it's information in context. It's information in a format that we know, we can understand, and is digestible. The very best thing we can base our decisions on is knowledge, right? Because you know more of the bigger picture. Go back to that other scenario. You know you're not looking for me now, you're looking for somebody else. But if you hadn't got the bigger picture and that knowledge, you couldn't base the decision on that. The other thing that SIMs are really, really, really good at, and there are other SIMs available other than Logpoint, they're just not Logpoint, is this. It's collating data. Look at all those people on the screen. They're all a little bit unique. They all don't really talk to each other very well, but there are certain attributes about them, Penny, who brings them together and joins them and makes them work as a unit and talk to each other. And that's what you need to see SIM technology as. SIM technology is your agnostic data collector. We don't care whether you're a McAfee house. We don't care whether you're a Sophos house. We don't care at all. We'll read all of those logs in and present that information in an agnostic format, but a format that's usable and readable to you guys. Okay? That's what the SIM technology here is. It's not the compliance checkbox. It's driving value through what you can see. And why would you want to drive value through what you can see? Well, you've got a security team, right? Everybody has one. They all look like these guys, right? I'm obviously the really tall one on the right. Probably the short guy in the middle, yeah. Your security team gets loads of tools and devices and advice thrown at you. Who is in the security team here? Who would be, I know we've got a single person security team here, flying solo, you teammates. You get loads of products, you get loads of different alerts, okay? Something goes on with your AV, you look to your AV platform. Something goes on with your network perimeter, you look to your firewall platform. Very few people do the join up and look between. One, because it's too complicated to do that. Both formats are in totally different. How am I going to do this? Fine. It's a very siloed approach. So you end up with specialists in one scenario, specialists in another, and specialists over here. What the SIM allows you to do is share that knowledge and spread it through the organisation and your security team. So that when the AV guy is off on holiday for 2 weeks on the Maldives, because he's just emptied the CFO's bank account, this guy over here, he knows what information is coming in, what's pertinent, what's normal. Because he's got that information, he can see it in the context of what's going on around him. This is how you help to empower that security team. If you know the information and it's there, ready and presentable in a format you can understand, brilliant, log in, boom, there we go. Thanks a lot, that's what I was looking for. Rather than 3 days later, well, I'm still not 100% certain because I haven't cross-correlated against this. Things move really quickly, we have to move really quickly with it. Let us help you conquer your environment, okay? This is all we want to do. We want to make your data viewable to you in a format you understand. We don't care what data it is, we just want to make sure you're using it because the bad guys have been owning your data for long enough. They use it, they see the value in it, that's why they go after it, but they also see all that tertiary data, protecting that data that you want to safeguard. That's what we as security professionals need to start leveraging and we need to start using. Okay, per node pricing, so we don't care how much data you throw at us, which is the great thing, or a site license, one or the other. We can go, yep, that's it, job done, put as much data in as you want. Because the one thing I can guarantee you about data, it grows a lot. The more of it you have, the more benefit you have. So there's different ways of pricing. It's also simple and easy to use because we are Scandinavian, hence the Vikings, if anybody didn't get that. We come from a background of everything being simple and easy to use, okay? That's what our whole mentality and methodology is, and that's what we want to do with these guys. And I have finished very early. Any questions?